Hello everyone. I hope you have had a great time during these summer holidays. As you know, we did a break during August to just, get some energy, charge the batteries uh, for the remaining year with all the learning and all the journey in the clouds. As usual, we have our guest user coming to join us, Arindan. How are you doing, Arindan?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for inviting on your platform. Really, really, really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure for us to have you here. And before we dive into the topic, because I know that you have a great topic for us today, I also invite everyone, just if you want to drop some message in the chat, sharing some details about how was your holidays, summer holidays, and even if you want to share the location where you went to and the experience, you are more than welcome. And before we start with our session, I would like to just highlight. So, as you know, after our break, this is the first session that we are doing, and as usual, you have all the schedule available in our websites. I will drop the link in the chat so you can follow along. So it's a way for you to ensure that you don't miss any session. And as the usual, we are going to start with a session every week. So just to give the opportunity for us to just process all the information after each of these sessions, and also then uh, come back and share your questions or even share your comments or also your suggestions. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I also want to just say thank you very much, Arindan, once again for being here. And if you are happy, the floor is all yours.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. So let's kick in.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to share the screen. Here we go.
Okay. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, it's all good.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. So as I got introduced, my name is Arindam Mitra, and I am an Azure Solutions and a DevOps architect. I am based out in Switzerland. I have an overall of 16 years, close to 16 years of experience, typically 11 years in data center and then 5 years in cloud. Again, more or less 5 years. It's not concrete 5 years. You cannot say in that way. I started 1 year in AWS. Implemented the whole AWS infrastructure for one of the banks back in India, and then I slowly moved to Azure Cloud. I started with assessment and then lift and shift, and now I'm basically architecting. I'm also automating. I'm also in charge in build and run, and making the project live. So I'm overall responsible for all the cloud migration or a greenfield or a brownfield project, as you might say. So this is my GitHub profile. Here you can see that I have put a little bit introduction about myself. As I said, I am a cloud solution and DevOps architect. I'm also a technical blogger, speaker, and my focus area is mostly on cloud adoption, architecture, automation, build, and run in Azure. You can find me in these links. I have provided my links here, my blog site, my LinkedIn, Twitter, Sessions, GitHub, and Facebook. You can also reach me out in the email addresses. I have a Yahoo and a Gmail address. Feel free to write me if you have any use case to discuss, any problems, anything which I can do to support. Happy to do it. Overall, I have I have published 20 blogs. I have spoken over 8 times on different topics, and on these 8 times, I got opportunity to speak on 6 different Azure community, and uh, Cloud Lunch and Learn would be my 7th Azure community with whom I will speak. I'm speaking right now. So you can see that I have already spoken on Journey to the Cloud, Welsh Azure User Group, Azure Zurich User Group, Azure Pakistan Community, Azure Burn User Group, and Azure Back to School. So these are all the things here. This is my GitHub stats regarding how many contributions I have made and my recent tweets. So I've pinned out all the important ones, all the recent ones which I normally do. And Before I jump into my topic, I just want to quickly browse you. So this is my LinkedIn profile. As you can see, please feel free to connect if you like my session, if you like my profile. You can always connect over LinkedIn. So this is my Twitter, where I like no mostly I tweet over my blog profile, or if anybody appreciates my work, or if I see something really good, am normally tweeting about those things. So this is my Twitter. So you can feel free to connect with me. This is my sessionize profile, and this is my speaker profile where I put all my things, and then I reach out to forums like Cloud Lunch and Learn and others. And if they find my sessions, lucrative or maybe good enough, valuable, and it helps other people, I get invited, and I'm glad that I'm doing my very first session with Cloud Lunch and Learn. Okay, so this is all about this one. Now, so this is my topic, which I'm going to talk about. So the topic name is um, Power of DevOps CLI and REST API. So a little bit about this one, because I normally, whenever I speak on some forum, I make sure that my blog is available, because if for some reason you guys are not able to follow what I'm saying, at least you can read my blog and you can correlate what I said in my demonstration, and what is written in my blog. And then probably if you have any questions, feel free to ping me over Twitter, over LinkedIn, or write me over an email. Uh, and I will do my best to answer all your questions/queries. So this is regarding the topic, Power of DevOps CLI and REST API. I have already spoken about this topic in Journey to the Cloud, and I also did a demonstration in Azure Burn user group very recently. So this is a little bit of information, what I did with all the group of people with other communities. So as it's written in my blog, this is what my pipeline is doing. So before I jump out here, a little bit about why I created this automation. So let's jump into my DevOps project. Uh, I have everything in AM Cloud, but I know that my Arundam Mitra DevOps project is pretty much empty. I just have this, so that I can show you. So normally, typically, what happens is that in an organization, you always get from different project groups, you get a request that they need a DevOps project. Okay, so this is the first part. So they need a DevOps project, which is basically a placeholder for their codes or to be committed in the repo, for their tasks to be tracked in the boards, for their pipeline to run and deploy in Azure. It can be an infrastructure pipeline, it can be an application pipeline, it can be a database pipeline, it can be anything. And also, maybe that some application wants to use artifacts also. So the first thing, so they need a placeholder, and this is the DevOps project they need, so that they have a dedicated DevOps project to do their own application works and everything. So this is the first thing. So we need to create a DevOps project. Once the DevOps project is created, then it might happen that they might need repositories. So you can create a lot of repositories here, and then after that, you need to initialize the repository. It's just like building a house. You made a house with bricks and cement. The house is done, but you cannot start living because the walls are not painted, or you don't have lights out there, electricity out there, so you cannot start. It's a similar way. So you create the repository, but again, you cannot check in and check out the code because you have to initialize the repository. So this is the second step. So you have to create the repository and then have to initialize the repository. Now, then what happens is, like in the pipeline section, it can happen that there are infrastructure pipelines, there are application pipelines, and it can, like on the first view, it can be very, very troublesome in identifying, okay, which is the infrastructure one, which is the application one, because it's like a whole holistic list. So normally in the best practices, what we do is, like, we create folders so that application can run their pipeline under the application folder, and infrastructure can run the pipeline under infrastructure folder. So this is a logical boundary, which helps you do the day-to-day operations very seamlessly. Otherwise, if you're not categorizing, if you're not designing it in a proper way, it can really becoming very, 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 very quickly, it can be confusing. So this is the pipeline folder which we have to create. Now, environments. We also have to create the environments because with this environments we attach the approval in place. For example, like you are trying to release a code. It can be infrastructure, it can be application, but you want your team lead or your line manager to approve the code because this code can be a breaking change. Like maybe it gets implemented properly, but some other feature might get impacted. So you need to have an approval in place. So when you are creating a YAML-based pipeline, it means that in order to attach the approval, you have to create the environment. So this is another thing which you have to do. Then if I go to project settings and everything, every DevOps project, they would like to have their own agent pool. Okay, why we have to have the agent pool? Because every similar to when every project wants their own DevOps project, similarly they would also like to have their own agent pool, because in the agent pool will sit the the build agents, and this build agents is the one on the top of which the pipelines are running. So they would like to also have a segregation, and they would like to use the shared agent pool. So yeah, we have to create the agent pool as well. And then some other things about the project is that for example, if I go here and I see, like I have now one repository. So in this repository, I have the main branch. Now the main branch for every repository is a source of truth. So it means that if I have 10 repository, I will have 10 main branch. So now you need to have some branch policy in your main branch. So it means that those branch policies has to be applied as well. So let's see that what are the branch policies. If I go to project settings and if I go to repositories out here, so this is my repository Arundham Mitra, and now I go to the policies out here. I click on these policy, just scroll down at the bottom, and I'm sorry, it is, I think it's in settings. No, it's in security. Hold on. So yes, I cannot see it because right now it's not being configured or something. But you have to set up the branch policies. Once you have the branch policies in set, it can then say that, okay, do you need a reviewer? Do you need like how many squash commits you want to do? Like, do you want to do a squash commit? Do you want to do a merge? What kind of things you want to do? Then during the code review, how do you want to do the code review? Like, for example, when I'm doing a code review, I am putting comments that, okay, something is missing. So when I'm closing the code review, should I close the comment or the comments leave open? It's still open. So these are typical branch policies, which is very much required for your day-to-day work and having a seamless, DevOps operation. So this I gathered, over the time, working with the whole DevOps architecture and day-to-day DevOps operation. I I gathered these best practices, and then I came up with a small automation which I normally use to provision the DevOps project. Why I came with this automation is because that for one time you are doing for one project, this is okay. But think about that every other day you are getting two such requests to create DevOps project with all the settings and all the configuration we talked about and some other best practices. There can be a lot of configuration. I'm just talking typically few configurations which I find very useful. Of course, you can do a lot more things, with the configurations and everything. But think about that every time somebody is requesting, and then again you have to do the same and over repetitive task over and over again. So not only it's time consuming, but it's also monotonous. At some point, it also gets bored that, okay, every day somebody is requesting and every day I have to do the same thing. Doesn't make sense. Then I thought that why not to create like, automation pipeline, which does all my job, which I just now explained to you. Now, of course, this can be done by Terraform, but I thought that, it would be cool to explore the Azure native tool, which is Azure DevOps CLI and the REST API, to see that how much I can go and where I hit the limitation. And um, I honestly, I love the experience. And this is what I'm going to share, that when with my very small demonstration, which I'm going to do right now, you will able to see that I could find two possibilities where DevOps CLI was not supported, and that is why I had to fall back to REST API. And this is why it's the reason that I wrote my topic as Power of DevOps CLI and REST API. So the things which I could not do with DevOps CLI, I used REST API as an alternative to use as much Azure native as much possible. So what my pipeline does now, my pipeline, it first installs the DevOps CLI extension. Now, why do I install a DevOps CLI extension? Because when I am running in uh, for this particular demo, I'm running my build agent is a Microsoft hosted agent. So I'm using the Microsoft hosted build agent. It's not a self-hosted. Sorry. So now when I'm doing this, so I am assuming that okay, the build agent where my automation is going to run, it doesn't have Azure DevOps CLI. So that is why what I'm assuming it that okay, it's a flat VM. I don't have nothing. So I will just install DevOps CLI because I need it. Then after the DevOps CLI is installed, what I do is I run the help command to make sure that the DevOps CLI extension is correctly installed in the build agent. Then what I do is I display the path. Now this is an optional step. I did it because I just wanted to be sure that when the user is inputting the path, then it is actually the pipeline is able to receive it, and that is why I displayed it. It's just like I didn't remove it because I find it good, but for security reason, of course, it is not required. You should remove it as soon as you know that your code is running and fine. So what I did is like it can be done in two ways. One, you generate a path and then you store it in Key Vault. And then what you can use the Key Vault task to fetch the secret during the pipeline run, and then use the value for the task in the pipeline. Okay. Or the second part is that you create a runtime parameter. The runtime parameter is nothing that when you are executing the pipeline, it is giving you the input box where you can put the path token, and then you click on submit, and then then the pipeline takes the value from there. So this is a 2-1. I did it with the runtime parameter, but I have also done um, I have also written other blogs where I've used keyboard as a task, and I can also guide you there that how I used it that. So this is about PAT. Now, why PAT is required? It's so the PAT is a kind of a thing. So it stands for personal access token. What does the personal access token do? It is required to do all the kind of works which you want to, all the settings configuration which you want to do in Azure DevOps. You need a certain rights, and this personal access token provides me that right, so that my service principal, which is doing all the which is running all the pipeline on all the configuration on the build agent, it has a sufficient rights to do all those tasks. That is why we need the path. Then what we do is that we create a DevOps project. We set the DevOps project organization on the project as default. Fine. Then the next step, the sixth step is like we create the repository as I explained earlier, and then we initialize the repository. Then we create pipeline folders. We create the pipeline environments. Why we need the pipeline environments? Again, to attach the approval. Once this is done, we create the agent pool. And then from point 11 till point 15, this is all about the policies which we are setting up in the main branch. Okay, so this is all my pipeline is doing, because this all task I was doing it earlier, long back, manually. And then I created my automation, which is at least helping me a lot. And as I said, this is just how would I say? This is just a start point to open up your minds and to contribute more on this. We can, as I said, you can do a lot with DevOps CLI and REST API. This is just a starting point, and maybe in future I would extend a little bit, 2, 3 options more, because I feel that I need those options in my organization as well. So maybe I'll add on and maybe I'll update my blog. But For now, just take it as a start point that how everything which you are doing manually, everything can be done over the automation. So here you can see that I have my repository. If I click on this one, so you have my repository out here. So this is my Git repository where you have everything, and it's again like I've put together some details, where I and how I did it, and those things, what my pipeline is doing. So this is all about. You have the link out here also, and this is basically my code. So this is my code, what I'm demonstrating. So we'll jump into the code in a while. Let's fall back to my blog. Once this is done, then I have put together my code, which we'll go through in a while. Um, so this is all the code I have put together in the blog, so that you can see it from here. You can copy, you can run it, you can do anything. It's pretty much ready to use code, um, with no changes and everything. As I said that we have runtime variables. This is how the one runtime variable looks like. So you see that in the option called pat. Here you have to feed in the token, which I have already generated, and it's stored in a keyword. I will show you that. And then this is my DevOps organization. This is pre-populated. You don't have to change because that organization never changes. So it's a static component. And then you can feel free to change the project name and everything, and then you can put a little bit of description. So these are all runtime parameters, which is a user input parameter, which user is actually putting the values. So uh, the realistic use case would be that a user has created a ticket for me, for the cloud engineer, that they need a DevOps project. They provided the name, they provided a description, they provided all the other details. All I have to do is I'll just pick up those values, put it in here, run the pipeline, it gets created, and then I update the ticket that the job is done. So that is how it works. Now, I have written about a little bit about personal access token, a one-liner which will give you a brief idea about that. Then I try to explain the variables and all these things. So I will now, what I will do is I will come back to this later, but let's jump into the code first because it's very interesting to see the code. Okay, the first thing is that you see that I have the trigger which is set to none. Okay, which means that even if you are running a pull request, you're merging from your feature branch to your main branch, you do anything, this pipeline will not run because I have not set up any trigger condition, which means that every time I have to run the pipeline manually. This works for me, but in case if you want to change, feel free to do it. So you can set it up in your, like, the way you want it. Then I have the parameters. Now you see that I have like 1, 2, 3, and 4 runtime parameters. So these are all user input parameters, which we just saw in my blog. Okay. Now these are the variables which I'm using below in my pipeline. So in case if you want to run in your environment, all you have to do is you have to just change this environment, and that's all. And you don't have to do anything more. I think, if to be very, very precise, you may have to change the DevOps organization. And these are like, these can be changed anytime. So these are all user input. But since this is a pre-populated field, I would say that, you change this and you change these values. Once you change these values, um, then you are good to go. I mean, like, you don't even have to change anything else. That is why I wrote in my blog that all my YAML pipeline which I have written, or for every blog which I have written, it's always parameterized and all are using variables so that, the underneath logic doesn't have to change because I'm using the parameters and variables, so that, it gives the flexibility to other users who are cloning my code or forking my repository, and um, and they can use it seamlessly rather than again jumping into the logic and then again changing it, putting effort. So that's how it is. Now, as I said, I'm using the build agent as Microsoft hosted. You see, I'm using the Ubuntu latest. And now you see that I have only a single stage. The stage name is AZ DevOps project. And then I have the multiple tasks. And these tasks correlate with all the points which I showed in the blog at the start, that what my pipeline is doing. So each task is doing that. So this is what the first task. I'm installing the DevOps CLI extension with this inline script. Then I am just running the help one. I'm just running the help. This is the second one. The third task is I'm displaying the path token, because the path token is user input. So I'm just displaying it again. For security reason, please remove this. If you remove this whole task, the pipeline doesn't get affected. I can assure you that. Okay. So this doesn't get affected. It's just I did it for the troubleshooting, as I said, and I just kept it. Maybe I was lazy enough to remove it. Then I moved to creating the DevOps project. So I just create the DevOps project. You have all the things, and you see that every time I'm using parameters. You see here the parameters. I'm using all the parameters out here. Then I'm setting the DevOps organization and project, which is the user input, as default. So this is done. Then I am creating repository. You see that what I have done is I'm creating two repositories. One is the name of the DevOps project, and then I'm appending the value infrastructure. So for example, if you are taking the DevOps project as AM01, so it will be AM01 hyphen infrastructure and then AM01 hyphen application. But though I'm creating two repositories, in the final output, when we see, you will see that there will be three repositories. Why? Because these are the two which I'm creating, but DevOps project by design creates a default repository by the name of DevOps project. So it is very important, because when I was building this app, this automation, I was initializing these two repositories, and then realized, oh, I have to initialize the default one also. So bear in mind that DevOps project comes by default with a repository. So any number of repository you are creating, so the final output is always n+1. So this is how it is. Then we are initializing the repository. You see that um, I have three sections. So one section is initializing the default one, then the infrastructure one, and then the application one out here. So this is what they are doing. You see that I have on the top, I have used some commands. So when you're initializing, these two are mandatory. So git config, user.email and user.name. So anybody who has installed Git on their local system, they know that they have to initialize Git for the very first time. So they have to provide. So these two are the mandatory commands. But these two I had to put because there was a lot of troubleshooting I did while initializing, and I then realized that these commands are useful enough in order to so that the pipeline doesn't fail. And what I have done is I have also recorded those screenshots and errors which I have got in the blog, and which I will show you in some time. So this is something like that. Then we create the pipeline folders, as I said, to segregate the running the pipeline execution. So an application have their own folders, and this I created pipeline environment as explained. Now, when we created this pipeline environment, you see that I have used the JSON snippet. Why I use JSON here is because here I'm using the REST API with the command AZDevOps invoke, and I'm basically supplying the JSON file which I'm creating. Now, why I did is because the pipeline environment and create agent pool, which is the next task. These two tasks cannot be done with DevOps CLI. So this is a limitation. So that is why I created environment using DevOps REST API, and then I created agent pool using DevOps REST API. The structure is exactly the same, but a little bit of change of variables. That's all. But it's the exact same structure with which I build the environment and I build the agent pool. So these are the two limitations of DevOps CLI. And then finally, I have the branch policies. So now you remember that I have three repositories. It means that I have three main branches. So all this will then, all these policies like minimum number of reviewers, linking the work items, and then comment resolution, merge types. So you see the comment resolution, then you see the merge types, and then you automatically include code reviewers. All these branch policies will then be applicable uh, um, exactly to all the three main branches uh, of all the three different repos. So this is what, in a nutshell, is my code doing. And now, without wasting any time, I will jump into the live demo, which I want to show you guys. But before I do, I will show you that this is how the pipeline result looks like when it is successful. I hope that this is successful when I'm running right now. This is how the project will look like. And then these are the three repositories. So you see that my project name is AM001. You see that the default repository gets created, and then there is other two which I created. I initialized each repository. You see there are three initialization. Then I used these to initialize, and I have written down if the above not added, below error was encountered, and I have given you the screenshot that what error it is. And again, it's again the HTTP proxy. If I didn't add this, this was the error. So I put everything possible, all the error screenshots and everything which I did. I just wanted to put everything there, so that no information is missing, so that you can utilize it. You can reproduce it if you want to see the error yourself. You can reproduce it also. So this is a pipeline folders. We have the pipeline folders like application infrastructure. You can feel free to change it. And here you see that I have written in my text that pipeline environment and agent pool cannot be created using DevOps CLI. Hence, I use the DevOps REST API. And I have provided you the link out here. Feel free to go it. I have taken the help from this link while creating it. So this is all, it will all point to the Microsoft documentation. Then I have the pipeline environment. Once the pipeline environment is there, then I have the agent pool. Once the agent pool is there, and then I created these branch policies. So this branch policy is applicable to the main branch inside each repositories. And then I have automatically added the code reviewers. So this is I try to put everything out here, as much detail as possible. Feel free to have a read. And if something is missing, do let me know. I'm happy to improvise, happy to have your feedback. And now I will show you that how it is running. Okay. So now I go to my AM Cloud, and in my AM Cloud, I will directly go to my pipelines. I will go to my all. So before I go to click on all, you see that I have so many pipelines running out here. You see the list. Okay. For example, now this is the real, for example, close to the real operations. Now, if something is like this and you don't have a folder structure, how would you identify on a day-to-day basis where maybe 2 or 3 people, or maybe a group of 5 people, a group of 10 people are working on the same project? That is why it's very important that you create the folders out here. So now if I have to go to DevOps CLI, I'll just go here. I'll go here. I'll click on this. And once I click on this, I will click on run. As soon as I run, you see that everything is pre-propagated. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm keeping the same project name, same DevOps description and everything. All I have to do is I will just put the path token. So I'll just remove this one. I will go here. I will go to my resource group. Once I go to my resource group, I will go to demo blog. I have my key vault out here. Let's see. I hope the path token is not expired. If it is expired, we can regenerate it. It's just that the pipeline will fail. But I think I generated it today morning just to be sure. But you never know. So I go here, show the secret value, copy it, go here, and I paste it. So this is my thing. I keep the rest of the values same. And what I do is I just run it. Okay. So now my DevOps project is running. So I'll just pause a bit so that to see that and if everything is working fine or something is not working. You never know. So it started. So now the first thing is it is uh, installing the DevOps CLI agent, the help option, displaying the path token. It's creating the DevOps project. Hopefully it will create. Setting a default. It's again creating the repository. It is initializing the repository. It's creating the pipeline folder. Then it is landing. So it's a pipeline environment, pipeline folder, agent pool, and all the policies and everything. It is getting created. Okay, I'm super happy that everything worked fine. I didn't have to troubleshoot. Um, so you can see that the way my blog is written and exactly I have tried to put all the name of the task very user friendly so that if anybody else is using this code, they can understand what everything is doing. So now since everything is done, let's see what it did. Now you go back here and you can see that earlier I had AM Cloud and Aramba Mitra, and now I have AM01. So the first task is done, creating the DevOps project. Now I go to repos. I go to repos. I go here. Um, I go here and you see that I have three repositories, AM001, AM01 application, AM001 infrastructure. So I have this. And you see that I just created a small README file just to initialize the repo. So each README file is displaying the repo name, AM001. If I go here in application, I click on the README file, and I can see that AM001 application. If I go to AM001 infrastructure, I create AM001 infrastructure. Okay, so this is all. So this is my three tasks: DevOps project, repo creation, initializing the repo. Now I go to pipelines. That is my fourth one. So the pipeline, you see, I have created two folders. And this can be any name, as I said, this is just like consider it as a demo or something, feel free to change it if you don't like the names or anything, doesn't matter. And this is the environment. Now we move to the next task, which was the pipeline environment. You see that I have deployed a dev environment. So in this, we can attach. So if you go here in dev environment, and then probably I'll just tell you the way you can do it. You can click on the three dots on the right, and you click on approval and checks. And then you can simply go to approval, and here you can add the name of the user or maybe a group, and so this is how you attach an approval to an environment. Okay, cool. We go back. So this is about the environment. Now we go to the agent pool. So we go to the agent pool, and you see that I have this AM pool 01. So this is my agent pool which got created. Now I go back here, and then I think I have to stay in the projects. My apologies. So now I go to the repositories here. Click on the repositories, and then you click on the one repository out here. And once you click on this, you scroll down. Sorry. So if you scroll down, so you have each repository, then you click on the policies, and then you click on the main branch, because I told you the policies are applied in the main branch because we don't care about feature or dev branch, because those branch are temporary branches which will be deleted once it is merged to main. So main is always my source of truth. So if I click on this one, you see that I have all the policies in place. So this is my branch policy, which I turned on. I put the minimum number as 2, and then I selected the option that when new changes are pushed, this will be applicable. Then I put a mandatory requirement that you have to link the work items. So whenever you are doing or whenever you're committing the code to your main branch, you have to make sure that there is an associated work item in your Azure DevOps board. Um, so to to uh, to make sure that okay, this change which I did, there's also a task recorded in the Azure DevOps board to correlate that okay, yes, this change was done because there was a task in the board. And then for the comment resolution is mostly for the code review. So if like you have written a code and I'm reviewing reviewing your code, then I can always put some comments. And you cannot merge it to the main till the time the comments has been marked as resolved by me. So so you write the code, I check the code, I put my comments, then you read my comments, you refactor the code, again I review it, and then I see, okay, my comments has been resolved, I mark it resolved, and then you can merge the code from your dev or a feature branch to your main branch. So that is why commit resolution is required. Then we have the other branch policies as list merge types. Here I have done everything. Most of the companies might keep only squash or might be rebase with merge, anything, but I kept the options open that that you can use anything. For me, the squash merge makes more sense because in my feature and dev branch, I might be doing a lot of commits, and when I'm merging it to my main branch, it's just one commit. And during my squash, I don't have to carry the history of the previous things. I will just put one commit. So maybe that during building of the code in the dev and the feature branch, you might be having 10 different commits. You're doing something, again testing, something is not working. Again, you are doing something is not working. And finally you reach a position where everything is working. By that time, your commit history is already 10 or 11 or 12 times. You have already committed it in your dev or feature branch. Is it necessary that we need to carry all those commits to my main branch? When I'm committing or when I'm doing a pull request or something, it's not. That is where squash merge is really really cool. You can just keep that whole quick and dirty commit history in the feature or dev. When you are merging, it's just one commit, so it's good enough. And then we have the code reviewer. So know whom you want to review it. So I just clicked on it and I just added my name and just put that a review required, and that is how I did it. So this is all these things. You can do a bunch of other things, and I'm telling this repeated, which can streamline your process. But this made my life really really easy, and this is what I call it as DevOps, the power of DevOps CLI and REST API. So feel free to use my code. Again, here is all the code and everything. Sorry, all the blog, and you can do it. And here is the repo. Sorry, this one is the repo. So the repo is I did it on 8th of April. I wrote this blog on 8th of April. So you have everything out here. So feel free to do it. If you like my if you like my work, if you like my blogs, please follow my blog. Please follow me in GitHub. It would be very, very appreciated. You see that now all total I have 27 repositories. In future, it will grow. So this is all my repository and everything. I try to keep it very clean and tidy. A little bit which I've learned over the work. So you can see that in all my uh, repositories are pretty much tied with tags, with a link to my blogs, with README file, with license file, and everything. So have a look, and I hope you enjoyed it. You learned something, and if you have any feedback, any questions, I am happy to answer those questions.
Sorry, I was on mute. Great session, Arindam. Thank you very much. We have a few questions, but I would say just to maybe to simplify and people accessing the resource that you shared, maybe if you can
Yeah,
use the private chat there and share the links,
sure.
so then I
Yes,
can
of course I will.
repost them. I think it's easier.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing it right away. So this the link which I gave you in prior. This is my blog, and
Okay,
this is the repository for the where they can find the code, and this is a link of my overall repository. I will give you the
okay.
other one.
So
Yes.
for
So
everyone, I'm just posting the links there in the chat. So if you are watching right now, or if you are watching later this session, you have the ability to access the chat and access all these links. So okay, just putting there. Actually, just one more moment. Want to go and all right, all links are there. And then I just want to share with you the question we have.
yep.
So we have Doctor saying what makes Azure DevOps different from GitHub?
So I would say that Azure DevOps was built more keeping an enterprise as an organization in mind. It was never made for, I would say, that cross-platform cloud and everything, because as you can see that Azure DevOps and everything, it's more Azure native, and they wanted to have their own thing. So it started with whole PFS, and then DevOps server in the on-premises, and then Azure DevOps. But there's a whole I would say that there's a huge noise going on that, okay, is Azure DevOps expiring, or should we use GitHub, should we migrate, and this is kind of a thing. But the nomenclature is very much similar, because why I say is because earlier GitHub was a separate enterprise. Now Microsoft has acquired it, and now the development of Azure DevOps is in a way where it's, I would say that it is there, but they are trying to make GitHub parallel to what they have done and the huge work they have done from on Azure DevOps. Now, if you have done pipelines and everything in uh, Azure DevOps, you see that there is a lot of similarity. For example, we call the build agents on the pipelines which runs on a virtual machine. It's in the backend, it's everything virtual machines. So we call it build agent, but in GitHub, it's called runner. Uh, we call it YAML-based pipelines. In GitHub, it's called GitHub Actions. We call the pipelines, as traditional pipelines. In GitHub, it's called workflows. You have pull requests, you have pull requests. All I'm trying to say is this is different variant, but GitHub and GitHub Actions are, you know, much more, I would say, contributed by all the communities worldwide. This is where Azure DevOps is lacking. The contribution is very, very limited, because the focus of Azure DevOps was for enterprise organizations. It was never for the whole community. And GitHub, it's developing so much, and it is gaining attention, because there's so many communities who are contributing this whole thing. But if you see, there are, I would say that very, very, very less difference. The one important difference I would like to spot you, because I cannot list you all the differences, but I can tell you that you can have stages. But if you want to have stages in GitHub and GitHub Actions, then you have to have a separate YAML-based pipeline. So the focus of the Azure DevOps, I would say, is more of the enterprise, but GitHub is more community-oriented.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that's a great classification on this. And just to add about what you were saying, I would say, see, there are a few things. Definitely, GitHub is improving a lot, and Microsoft is investing a lot to improve GitHub. But there are things that we cannot even compare when it comes to comparing GitHub with Azure DevOps. One example is the Azure boards. So the
Yeah.
boards allows you to manage easily projects using Kanban boards and this kind of
Yes.
stuff. Whereas in GitHub, if you try to use task lists or even issues,
Yeah.
it's really messy to use
Yes.
it. I
Yeah.
know that Microsoft have been using in their official repositories
Yes.
a lot the GitHub issues and GitHub task lists, but I find it more confusing, honestly,
Yeah.
because I think the Azure boards is designed definitely, especially if you are working with agile methodologies. It's
Yes.
definitely designed in that way, so you can configure features, you can configure then user stories, everything there in an easy way, and link everything. The most important part is link everything all together with the code, which is really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I said, DevOps, the mindset, they prepared DevOps was more for the enterprise customers.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
never for the community. It was always focused with the organization needs and requirements.
Yeah, I know that there are some theories of people saying that DevOps is going away, but I don't really
No,
think so.
no,
Because honestly, on my perspective, based on the clients I've been working with,
hmm,
they are all using Azure DevOps and
yes,
every, and
mhm,
to migrate all of these to GitHub
yeah.
is
It's
painful, you know.
difficult. It's painful. Yeah, it's
It's really,
painful.
yeah,
Uh, as I said, GitHub would be most useful if you are like having multi clouds. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like you have AWS, some workloads are running on AWS, something is running on Azure, something on GitHub. I think, that is a good starting point, where you can start thinking about GitHub and GitHub Actions.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Apart from that, listen, a great session. Thank you very much. It was
Yeah.
a pleasure.
Yes.
I think we don't have any more questions, but if you have any questions, just I would say just feel free to connect with Arindam and even share your questions with him. In the meantime, I know you're scheduled for next week as well, right?
Yes. 14th, I'm scheduled with you again, and then the final one is on 28th. I
Yeah.
have 3 sessions with you guys.
All right. So let me just do it here quickly before we shut down.
Yeah.
We have Doctor saying great session. Doctors, if you feel that you have any more questions, or if it's not clear what we just explained here about GitHub versus Azure DevOps, feel free to just use the chats and comment. I'm just quickly going to share the screen here, just
Sure. Sure.
quickly. Share the screen. All right. Okay, as usual, as you know, our website, I'm going to put there in the chat as well for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just feel free to just register for the next week's session,
Yes.
which again, Arindan will talk about Azure Container Registry using Aquasec Trivi and Azure DevOps. Okay, so it's definitely a nice opportunity for you to continue this journey about learning more about Azure DevOps, and in this case about containers. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
so you can, from the website, you have the link to register to the
Sure.
session and everything should be there. All right.
Sure. Yeah.
Given that, I just have to say thank you very much once again, Arindam, and wish you a great day, and see you next week. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I wish you the same. Have a great rest of the day. Relax a little bit. Yes. Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for attending us. I hope you enjoyed this session. Feel free to share any comments, anything, and see you. Hopefully, see you next week. Okay. Take care.
See you. Ciao, ciao. Bye.